Claudia. I'm a self-proclaimed bookworm. My boyfriend, not so much. So I started summarizing entire books for him. Dramatic plot twists, romantic betrayals, magical quests, all of it. Basically, he gets the story without reading a single page. And now I'm doing the same for you. Welcome to The Whole Story, the channel where I read the book and then tell you the whole story, literally. Fantasy, romance, literary fiction. If it has yearning, magic, or emotional damage, I've got you covered. I'll tell you the whole story in 30 minutes or less, spoilers included. Yes, I will tell you who dies, who cries, and who should have just gone to therapy. So, if you like books, but you don't have the time to read all of them, or you just want to know what happens without the emotional labor, hit subscribe and let's write some endings together. Yeah, because life's too short to read 700 pages of slow burn, unless you're into it. I kinda am. Hello, so today we're going to talk about Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. And this is a fiction book. It is a love story, and it follows the story of Joan Goodwin. It is, I don't know if you've ever heard Taylor Jenkins Reid, but I feel like she gets this mood sometimes where she gets super into one topic and she goes really into that, and then she writes a full book on it. So that's a bit what happened here. Atmosphere is about NASA, astronomy, space shuttles, etc. So she goes really, really deep into that topic. It's a bit like what she did with Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. It was about Hollywood and acting, so she went really into that. I mean, Carrie Soto is Back is a full book just about tennis all the time. So, you know, it's something that she does. So in this one, we're going to follow Joan Goodwin. She is in the States, and this is taking place in 1981 to 1985. So the story goes back a bit between now and how she first started. So the first chapter, it's 1985, and then she is at work, going to work, and she's working in mission control. You figure out that she's an astronaut. She has been to space. And what she does now is she works in mission control. So she's the one, you know, like in the room, talking to the people that are in the space shuttle. And she's helping, you know, so you have the full room of engineers and all the people that are working to make everything work at NASA. And she's the one talking. So this day she goes to work and she's talking, and she's a bit nervous because the people that are in the space shuttle that she has to talk to today, they're actually her friends and colleagues, and it's people that she went to that were in her class. It's a bit ominous how she starts, you know. She's like, oh yeah, at this point Joan was not afraid or heartbroken or sad. That would come later. And you're like, okay, something bad's gonna happen. So then you shift to the perspective of Vanessa Ford, that she is one of the people, one of the astronauts that is in the space shuttle right now. And what they are doing, the mission basically, is they have to deploy a satellite. So today the satellite was supposed to be deployed, but something went wrong, so they just have to go and do it manually. And Vanessa, she's an engineer, so it's her job. So she goes together with Griffith, which is another colleague, another astronaut, and they have to do a spacewalk. So they actually have to go out to the payload and manually detach these things. I don't know, something. So they go, they open. They're very like marveled at how amazing it is to be out in the space, to be able to look at Earth from a distance, and it's all really, really nice, kind of poetic. And they go, they do their job, and then it's really, really short, you know. And all along they're talking to Joan Goodwin on the loop. That's what they call it. They're on the loop, talking to her and getting instructions and letting them know what is happening. Because you have to imagine the people in mission control in that room, they can't see anything, right? All they have is all the monitors and all the screens. So the astronauts, the team that is up there, 5 people, they're all connected with wires. They can see the heart rate and all of these data, but they can't see what's happening, right? So the astronauts are always talking about it. We just opened the hatch. We just did this. We just did that. Copy that. Roger that. You know, the whole thing. They do what they're supposed to do, and then Joan tells them, okay, go back, but stay in the payload. Don't go back into the space shuttle. Just stay there, just in case there's something else that needs to be done, because they're with the spacesuit at this point, right? And inside the space shuttle, you don't need the spacesuit, only when you're outside because of this pressurization and the oxygen levels. So they're just sitting there, and they're supposed to close the hatch again. But, you know, Griffith looks at Vanessa, and they're like, let's not do it. So really good. And you're like, this is not gonna end well. So they decide to leave the hatch open, even though that's not following protocol. And NASA is all about protocols. So they leave it open because it's so pretty and it's so nice, and they're just waiting. And then the satellite is attached by two cords, ropes, whatever. And then one of them, like there's like an explosion because that's how they detach. So one of them detaches as it's supposed to be, and the other one, there's a problem, and there's a huge explosion instead. And this explosion causes debris from the satellite to fly everywhere. And the debris hits the space shuttle, and it hits Griffith. And this wouldn't have happened if they had closed the hatch, right? I mean, the explosion would have still happened and the debris would still have flown around, but Griffith wouldn't have been hit by the piece of debris. Because he was hit, now there's a hole in his spacesuit, and the oxygen and the depressurization is no longer working, so they have minutes to close that down so that he doesn't die, because like basically his blood will just boil from the inside and come all out, just like really dangerous, right? But they've been prepared for this. They've been studying for all the protocols. At the same time, people in mission control are letting them know that the oxygen levels are going down really fast inside the space shuttle. So the other three people, that's Lydia, Dane, Steve, and Hank, they're also in the shit because one of the debris hit the space shuttle and created a leak. So there's a hole. They don't know how big, but there's a hole in the wall. And they have to, in the hull, and they have to cover this up because otherwise they're all going to die. And they have minutes to do this because the oxygen levels are going down rapidly. So they're all scrambling around. Everyone's like super calm. This is what they've prepared for, no one's freaking out. And they're just taking everything off the walls, trying to figure out where the hole is. At the same time, Vanessa and Griffith are on the payload, and she is trying to like cover the hole in his spacesuit so that he doesn't die, but he does go unconscious. They close the hatch, and inside there's like 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Joan is in the mission control, and they're like, team, what's happening? Talk to us. Like, did you find it? No, it's not here. No, it's not here. Did you find it? No, it's not here. Everyone is like, fuck, we need to find this like right now. And then everyone goes quiet inside the space shuttle, and they're like, what's happening? And Vanessa is the only one who is still talking because she still has the spacesuit. She's still on the outside of the shuttle, and she's the only one that is conscious because it's been too long. And somehow they can see in mission control, they can see the numbers are stabilizing again. So the oxygen levels are going back up inside the shuttle, which means that someone did find the leak and someone did cover it up, but it was too late. So when Vanessa finally gets into the space shuttle and she's carrying Griffith, she sees that everyone is unconscious. She goes to Steve, who's her mentor, the pilot of the space shuttle, and a close friend, dead. She goes to Hank, also dead, like gruesomely dead, because the whole oxygen thing, horrible. Lydia Danes is the only one that is still alive because she can also talk to mission control, and they can see in their screens that she's still breathing, but she doesn't have that long. She's unconscious, and Griffith is unconscious. So in a team of 5, Vanessa is now the only one that is awake, conscious, and that can do something. And they're all trying to figure out, okay, what do we do now? So that's how it starts. And then the book jumps back to 1981 and tells you the whole story of how they got here to this day. So the book is very much focused on Joan Goodwin. She is a kind of quiet, sensible girl. She's always had big dreams. She's always wanted to do more. It's the 70s when she's growing up, and she has a lot of ambition that she wants to, leave a legacy and do something with her life and be a part of something bigger. And also at this time, there's already like the space race and everything that is happening. There's the moon landing, and she has always been very marveled by the stars and the universe and everything, right? So she is an assistant teacher of astrophysics at a university, and then she finds out that NASA has opened up applications for astronauts, and they are accepting applications from civilians. So not only military, but also civilians. And they are looking for pilots and like assistants, like people that will help them. So scientists, they want scientists, not just pilots. So she applies. It's a very big thing because at this point, women, they don't really work that much, and they're not taken seriously, especially in the science field. And there's a bit of competition. Like as soon as she comes into the class, they're all like, all the women are looking at each other like, you are my competition, because they know that even though NASA is opening it up for women now, it's not going to be like, oh yeah, let's get 15 women in. So they know that it's a lot of like limited spots that they can take. She does the classes, she meets, she does the application, she does the tests, she passes, and she is selected. So, you know, she goes into, she moves to Houston, she gets a little house, and she's close to the NASA headquarters, and she starts her training. She meets her class. I don't know, it's like 15, 20 people. It's a mix of the pilots that are all from military background and the scientists, right? And she calls them the cowboys and the nerds. And she meets everybody. She does become really good friends with Griffith, and at some point she realizes that he's also like having a thing for her, but she shuts it down because she's like, I just want to be friends with you. She meets Lydia Danes, who's very arrogant, very pushy, and she's very competitive. Like, if there's only one woman that is going to go on the first trip, it's going to be me. Like, you are all my competition, right? And Joan, she understands that there's also some competition, but she's more like, I will do my best and I will try my hardest. And if I'm selected to go first, great, I would love to go first, but I'm not going to step on anyone else to do it, right? And then she also meets Vanessa Ford, who is very charismatic, very cool, like, you know, typical like astronaut vibes, that she's just like, you know, with her sunglasses, and she's just so cool. And Joan is like, wow, everyone here is just amazing, right? Vanessa Ford, she's actually a pilot as well, but because she doesn't have military background, she's considered one of the scientists. She's an engineer. So she's put into the scientist part, and she quickly finds out that they're not going to let her pilot a space shuttle ever. So she's really disappointed because that's actually what she wanted to do. So we follow Joan through her training. There's a lot of different tests and practices that she has to do. There's a lot of talk about like the fear and what it means to be afraid, what it means to be courageous, what it means to be brave, because she is terrified of some of the things that she has to do. Like, they have to fall with a parachute on top of on the ocean to train in case they fall, and how to survive, how to be left in the ocean alone for hours until help can come, you know. So there's a lot of like first aid training, a lot of survival training, and it scares her a lot, but she still does it, right? They also have to fly, they have to get flight hours, so she flies with Hank, and he's very nice, you know, and you can see how she's developing all of these connections and everything, and she's one of the people that gets along with everybody because she's so not mellow, but she's very like easy to get along with. She doesn't like conflict, you know, so she just kind of goes with everything. Even Lydia Danes, who has a reputation for being harsh and not getting people on her side, she's still like trying her best to understand people and to put herself in their position. So she's quite nice as a character, I would say. We also find out that a bit more about her family. She still has her parents, they're still married, and she has a sister called Barbara. And Barbara. So this woman, she is a bit all over the place. She's a bit the opposite of Joan. All through their childhood, Barbara was like the star, right? She was the one creating all the drama. She was the one that had all the attention, and Joan kind of like made herself smaller because of that, right? So it was always about Barbara, never about her. So of course you can see how this has developed into who she is as an adult, where she never asks questions, she never asks for attention, you know. She's like, at some point, Vanessa, like they go out for lunch or dinner or something, and Vanessa asks her questions about herself, and she's like, do you actually want to know? And she's like, yeah, I want to get to know you, like we're friends. She's like, oh, like no one has really tried to get to know me. Like, I'm not an interesting person. It's like, yes, you are. Like, you are smart, you are funny, you play the piano, you draw, like you are so interesting and you have so many thoughts. But she's never been used to someone actually caring about what she thinks, which is crazy. So yeah, Barbara, she was a bit all over the place, and she had a lot of boyfriends and whatever, and then eventually she got pregnant when she was in her 20s, and she realized, like, this is it, this is my purpose, this is what I've been looking for. I'm going to be a mom. This is what I'm going to do with my life. And you're like, okay, sure. But she's doing it alone, right? Just with her family. and she asks Joan for help a lot. So Joan, even though she's an aunt to this little girl called Frances, she's honestly been more of a second mom and a second parent to Frances because she loves her like a mom, and she always takes care of her. Like, Frances is at her house once a week or twice a week. She takes her to go buy school supplies, and they have like all these traditions, and they spend the holidays together, and sometimes when they're fighting, Barbara's like, oh yeah, I'm doing this by myself, I'm a single parent. It's like, well, no, like your sister has been here all the time and she helps you so much, but Barbara is very much like, oh, poor me, like I couldn't do what I wanted with my life. And then she quickly realizes that having a child is not gonna save her life and give her a full-time purpose. So she's always looking for something else, and she wants someone to do it with. So she's always dating, trying to meet men, trying to fall in love, because she feels like there's something huge missing from her life. And Joan is like, but what are you talking about? Like, Frances is such a big part of your life. And Barbara's like, yes, she is, but I want more. Like, she's just my kid. I'm just a mom. I also want to have a life. And you're like, okay, so what happened to it being like your full purpose? Anyways, so Joan is doing all the training. She's getting closer to a lot of people. One of them is Vanessa. She does feel a really good connection with Vanessa. They really hit it off. They understand each other. Vanessa's interested in her as a person. We also start talking about the love life, of course, because at this point, Griffith kind of hits on her or says that he wants something with her, and she shuts it down. And we find out that she's actually never had a boyfriend. She's never had any interest in dating or love. She doesn't understand what's the point. Why would people become so obsessed with another person or kissing or sleeping together? She's like, I don't see the appeal to it. And then one time they go out and they're partying in Louisiana after a training. And they go to she's a bit drunk, and they go to a strip club. And she's just like looking at the women and how they move, and she's like, wow, like these women, they really know how to move, and they're so beautiful, and their bodies and how they move. And then she kind of becomes like even a bit obsessed. Like, she goes home and she's drawing one of them, and then Vanessa goes there and she's like, what are you drawing? So it's a bit, there's a lot of this like saying things without saying them. So as they talk and as they get to know each other, like, they also, like, Vanessa says that she wants to learn more about the constellations, so Joan offers to help her out, and they go out one night into the middle of nowhere, and they spend a few hours together, and it's almost like a date, right? But no one says it, right? And she talks about how interesting Vanessa is and how cool Vanessa is and how pretty Vanessa is, and you're like, come on, like, get to the point. But Joan doesn't understand it, right? And even Vanessa, she's like, well, I know who I am, but do you know who you are? Like, and she's like, yeah, I know who I am. It's like, are you sure? I think that you're lying to yourself about who you are. And you're like, come on, get to the point faster, because Joan is just clueless. And then eventually, when they go to the strip club and she sees all the women and she understands how interested she is in the female form, I think it kind of clicks that she is interested in women. And there's a whole moment and there's a whole scene, and it's very romantic and it's very interesting. And then they finally kiss, her and Vanessa. And from then on, they start to date each other in secret, because so this is the 80s, and being homosexual is seen as being immoral, right? It's against the rules, it's against God. And Joan, she is religious. She does believe in God. There's a lot of really interesting conversations about what God means to her and how people are connected and how we're all here for one purpose, and that is God. She sees God everywhere all the time. So it's kind of difficult because she feels no shame in this, right? Because she starts to realize that she loves this woman, and yet they're not allowed to be outside and hold hands and be together like all the other couples, just because someone says that homosexuality is a sin, right? And because they're at NASA, like at this point, there's of course this like bias, and there's a lot of discrimination going on, but it's not that bad anymore. Like, if they wanted to be together somewhere in the street, maybe they would be ostracized and they would be like looked at wrong, but they wouldn't be persecuted or anything like that, right? But because they're at NASA, they could never ever ever make their relationship public, because NASA is under a lot of scrutiny and their scientists are under a lot of scrutiny, same as the astronauts and everything happening. So if they would find out, and there's a couple of people that kind of find out, and they make one of them makes a threat. They're like, how curious that you're both showing up at the same time in the same car. How curious indeed, you know? And there's another person that is their friend and says, like, I love you as a friend and I appreciate you and I want to tell you that I have your back no matter what happens and I want you to be who you are, but just understand, you know? So people start to catch on to it and they're very much like, okay, we can't do anything about this. So they basically start a relationship in secret. She does fall in love. It's like really cute to see like how having another person in her life and being loved and loving someone changes her. And it's really, I don't know, kind of, it's quite like nice to see like what the first love means and all the feelings and emotions that she has towards this person. But of course, they're dating in secret, spending all their nights together if they can. And they're together for basically like 3 years. And they don't tell anyone. One of their friends and colleagues, she does find out, but she doesn't say it out loud, of course. But she just says, like, I'm happy that you are both happy and everything seems so good, you know. She meets her family as a friend. She meets Francis as well. There's a huge drama point as well with Barbara because at some point she meets someone, she falls in love finally, and she gets married. And Frances starts to react really poorly to it. She feels like she's like 7 or 8 at this point, and she starts having tantrums and lashing out because of course she feels left out, like her mom doesn't prioritize her anymore. Like her mom will be like, yeah, me and what's his name, we're going out for dinner, you stay at home. Or Joan, can you please come and get Francis because I'm going on a trip with my new husband, you know. And you're like, what's happening? And then Frances, she's of course she doesn't understand what's happening and she's lashing out and she's feeling very she's having a hard time emotionally. And Barbara, she gets tired of her because she's insolent and she speaks up and she's really rude to her new husband. So Barbara actually puts her in a private school, in a boarding school, far away. And Joan feels really bad and they actually have a huge fight about it. And Barbara's all like, well, you don't know what it's like to have a family. You don't know what it's like to have a child. You've never been a mother. You've never even been in a relationship. You don't know what it's like to love someone the way that I love my husband. And I have to prioritize him over my daughter sometimes so that I can be happy as well. And Joan is just like, I do know, right? Because she has been in a relationship for the past 3 years, but she can't say anything. And she knows that she can't even say it to her sister because she'll be judged and she won't understand, right? So she shuts it down, but they still have a huge fight. And Barbara's like, if you like Frances so much, and if you want Frances, just take her. She's yours. She's like, you don't mean that. Yes, I do. Take it. Take her. She's yours. I'm not going to take her like, my husband, he's being relocated to London, so I think I'm gonna go with him. And you're like, what the fuck? Like, you're just gonna leave your daughter? Like, I'm not gonna get into that. Okay. I'm not gonna get into that. So there's a huge fight, and the outcome is that Joan decides to take Frances. So Joan decides to take Frances. She goes and gets her from the boarding school, and she moves in with her. The problem is Frances also doesn't know that Vanessa and Joan are in a relationship, and she can't know. So this is going to become a real problem because now Vanessa cannot sleep over anymore because then Frances would know that they're together and Joan cannot go to sleep in Vanessa's house anymore. So it really puts a big, it creates a lot of tension in their relationship because they need to figure it out. At the same time, Joan's boss, Antonio, he makes kind of like saying it without saying it, like, there have been threats and someone knows that you're doing something that you shouldn't, you know, and it's opening us up for blackmail and things like that. So, you know, if there was something going on, I trust that you'll shut it down. So she talks to Vanessa and she realizes that someone knows about them and is threatening. So she actually makes a decision to break up with Vanessa. And it's horrible. Like she's trying to do it in a nice way. She's like, this is not going to work. I have Francis now. We can't be together anymore. And Vanessa's like, what are you doing? Like, why are you doing this? I told you that I love you. I told you that I want to spend my life with you. I would marry you if I could. And Joan is like, we can't. Like, this is never going to work because being an astronaut is important to me and it's important to you, and our career is very important. And if we're together, then we are jeopardizing our career and our future at NASA. So they have a huge fight. They're just both crying through it. I was crying through it. Vanessa leaves, but then, and Joan is just like, okay, this is over, and she's just crying. And then Vanessa calls from the phone booth and says, no. She's like, what do you mean? No, you can't do this to me. You can't decide that this relationship is over. Like, I told you that I love you, and this is worth more than any career and anything that I could do as an astronaut. So no, we're going to figure it out. You don't get to tell me what you want to do, and I still want to be with you, and we're going to make this work. So they stay together, which is amazing. But at this point, Vanessa has been confirmed for her first mission. And I skipped this part, but Joan also did a mission like a few months ago. And she went up there and it was amazing, but it was like, I don't know, 5-6 days. And she spent the first 3 days puking nonstop. So she actually realizes that she loves being an astronaut and she loves all of it, but she doesn't actually want to leave the Earth because she was just so sick because of the zero gravity and she didn't have a good time. And she just feels like she wants having both feet on the ground. And she was very marveled at what it feels like to be in space and to look at Earth. And it made her understand how much she wants to be in Earth, because that's where all the people that she loves are. That's where her family is. That's where Francis and Vanessa and her parents are. And she realizes, like, that is it. Like, that's my purpose in life, is to stay there and be a part of this huge tapestry that we call life. So it's really nice. But she goes back and she decides, you know what, I am an astronaut. She gets her little pen, but I want to stay on Earth. So she does make an official request to just be on mission control. And now you're caught up. Now it's 1985. Vanessa's up there with Lydia Danes and the other people that are all dead. Griffith is alive for a bit. And they let her know that she can catch like one of the orbits something and come back to Earth, and they have like 10 hours to come back, and there's still a chance that they can save both Lydia and Griffith. But she has to close the hatches, and the hatch has been damaged by the debris. So she's trying for a really long time to fix the hatch. It needs to close, like there's like 36 hatches and latches, and she needs to close all of them. Otherwise, the shuttle could burn upon re-entry up in the atmosphere. So she needs to make sure they're all closed. So she spends a lot of time doing all of that. Most of them are damaged. So there's like 8 that she cannot close, and they do all the calculations, and they tell her like the error margin is only for 4 latches. So she tries really hard, but the longer she tries, the less chances she has of actually catching the orbit thing, whatever, like catching her window to go back into the atmosphere. While she's doing this, Griffith dies. He does flatline, and Joan was one of his best friends. So she's like heartbroken and she's like crying and everything, but she's still like trying to like keep calm because she's at work, right? And she has a job to do, and she's really good at compartmentalizing, but she's heartbroken. Her best friend just died, and the love of her life could also die, right? So she's like, and she can't say any of these things like out loud. She has to be very professional. She's like, Vanessa, you need to continue. Vanessa, you need to stop what you're doing. You need to get back to Earth. Joan tells Vanessa, NASA wants you to continue trying to fix the latches so that there's a better probability of you making it into the atmosphere properly. And Vanessa says, I'm sorry, no, I'm going to go against NASA's decision, because the longer I spend on this, the less chances Lydia has of surviving. And Lydia is the one that found the hole and fixed it. So, you know, she's a hero. So she's trying to get her home safe. So she goes against all the decisions and all the rules. And she says, fuck it. Like, I did the latches as best I could. I'm going home. So she does all the things. She's finally piloting the space shuttle, which is something that she's always wanted to do. And she's coming back to Earth, and she's doing the orbit thing, and it's basically a goodbye, because there's a really good chance that the shuttle is going to burn upon re-entry. So they're trying to say goodbye to each other without saying out loud that they're lovers. It's really, really sad. and she's crying, and they're trying to say everything that they want, and she says, like, there's nothing you could have done. Like, I wouldn't feel comfortable with myself. Of course I want to live, but I wouldn't feel comfortable with myself knowing that I didn't do everything possible to save Lydia. So she goes back in, and there's a moment where there's like 10 minutes where you lose contact with the shuttle always. And so for those 10 minutes, everyone is quiet in mission control. There's like deep silence, and they're just waiting. And 10 minutes pass, and she's like, Vanessa, 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 nothing. 15 minutes pass, nothing. 20 minutes pass, no sound. And then everyone's like, fuck, like they died. Like it did burn. And Joan is just crying a lot, and she's thinking like, thank God for the opportunity to even have known Vanessa, and I'm so privileged with the life that I had. It was great to even know her, even for a small window of time. And she's heartbroken. And then on the last page, you hear, Houston, we've made it. We're alive. We're landing now. The end. So they made it. So it's a really good book. You go through a lot of emotions. It is a love story. It is very interesting to see all the astronomy things and the space things and the universe. And there's some really interesting conversations about God and space and humans and our place on Earth. So I do recommend it if you're up for reading it. And that's it. See you next time.